Zhang Yi had his hands in his pockets and didn't want to go over, but Zhou Qiu smiled and pulled him by the arm, dragging him over. "Since we're already here, just make a wish. Think of it as good luck." Zhang Yi heard this and said, "That's true. I'll just make a casual wish." After he finished speaking, he opened his palm, and a shiny gold coin appeared in the palm of his hand. It was a 24K pure gold commemorative coin. Zhang Yi had many of these in his possession, and he usually threw them around for fun. After all, there would be nowhere to spend them after the end of the world. Seeing this, everyone looked at Zhang Yi strangely. "Wow, you call this casual?" Zhang Yi was indeed casual. He didn't believe in these things, but even though he didn't believe, he was still respectful. He flicked his thumb and threw the coin into the dragon chamber well. "I hope we can all live in peace and have enough to eat and a roof over our heads," Zhang Yi said. He didn't have any grand ambitions, he just hoped that he and his friends could live in peace and happiness. The people at home started clamoring, saying that Zhang Yi did it on purpose. Then a bunch of people surrounded Zhang Yi, asking him to take out more gold coins so they can make another wish. Zhang Yi directly took out a large handful of gold coins and let them take whatever they wanted, even giving one to Li Yangyang. There were too many gold coins, so everyone made more wishes. Zhang Yi couldn't help saying, "Hey, don't be so greedy. If you make too many wishes, they won't come true." Zhou Qiu said, "If there really are gods, maybe they're busy right now. Everyone is busy making wishes, so they might not be able to hear us all. That's why I have to make a few more. If even one of them comes true, that would be great." Zhang Yi rubbed his forehead and said, "You've learned the probability theory well." After throwing the coins, Fatty Su ran to the side and started chatting with Li Yangyang. Zhang Yi gritted his teeth. He couldn't believe that Fatty Su could make Li Yangyang laugh so much. He secretly used his smart system to analyze their mouth movements and discovered that Fatty Su was actually telling Li Yangyang game strategies. It was like a turtle looking at green beans. They were a perfect match. Fatty Su was excited and said triumphantly, "In this situation, I want to recite a poem." He pointed to the dragon chamber well next to him and recited, "Heaven and earth are one, and there is a black hole on the ground. The yellow dog is white, and the white dog is swollen." Zhang Yi sneered. Sure enough, he was a lapdog, every word coming out of his mouth. After everyone had thrown coins and made their wishes, they headed to the next attraction. However, after leaving, Zhang Yi suddenly felt like he was being watched from behind. The muscles in his back tensed up. He slowly turned around, but behind him was only the dragon chamber well surrounded by iron chains and cement railings, lying lonely in the snow. Zhang Yi took a deep breath, ignored it, turned around, and quickly left. After gaining the ability of everything follows the trail, his intuition was frighteningly accurate, and he often had an inexplicable feeling. Especially when he was sleeping at night, he would occasionally hear something similar to muttering echoing in his ears. At first, Zhang Yi thought that he was just too tired and needed to rest. But later, this situation began to occur more frequently. He thought that something was wrong with his body, or that he had developed a condition similar to post-traumatic stress disorder after the end of the world. However, after Zhou Qiu's thorough examination, the conclusion was that there was nothing wrong with his mind or body. Over time, Zhang Yi could only put this issue aside. After all, it didn't happen very often, and it didn't affect his life. Could it be that I have a constitution that allows me to see ghosts? Zhang Yi shook his head with a bitter smile. Over the next few days, the group traveled around the Xinjiang area, sightseeing and enjoying themselves. Although the weather was cold and there weren't many places to have fun, there were still quite a few places to visit. During this time, Zhang Yi also spoke with Zhu Jing on the phone. Zhu Jing naturally hoped that Zhang Yi would agree to the Xinjiang region's request and participate in the operation. However, the final decision was up to Zhang Yi himself. On the other hand, Deng Shintong mobilized the Deng family's connections and asked people to search for the families of Zhang Yi's companions, and they got a response. The result was not too surprising. According to the information provided by those whose families were in Xinjiang, no matching people were found there. A few people had even been confirmed dead. After hearing this, everyone felt a wave of grief, but they had already prepared themselves mentally, so they quickly adjusted. So, you mean there isn't a single person left alive? Zhang Yi couldn't help but ask. Deng Shintong spread his hands helplessly. You should understand how difficult it is for ordinary people to survive after the apocalypse. The people you want me to find are just ordinary people. If they were soldiers or powerful and influential people, their survival rate would be much higher. What's more, it's been more than a year since the apocalypse, and even those who were alive at the time have mostly died in the aftermath of the disaster. The people Zhang Yi's companions were looking for were their parents, who were very old and indeed likely to have died in the apocalypse. This was not really beyond Zhang Yi's expectations. It's a pity, said Zhang Yi. But, Deng Shintong changed the subject, it's not a complete loss. As he said this, his eyes suddenly fell on one person, Yang Xinxin. Everyone's gaze fell on her. Yang Xinxin frowned slightly. Me? She felt a little puzzled. In this world, apart from Zhang Yi, she didn't have any close family members. As for the Yang family's relatives, she didn't care about them at all. She hadn't asked Deng Shintong to help him find anyone, so why would he mention her? Yang Xia said excitedly, is there someone else from the Yang family still alive? Deng Shintong shook his head, not exactly. It's just that while searching based on Miss Yang's connections, I accidentally discovered something very interesting. What Deng Shintong said was very clever and made people very curious. Zhang Yi said, just say what you want to say, don't keep us in suspense. Come on, who did you find? Deng Shintong did not directly say the person's name. He took a deep breath, as if trying to calm himself down. Zhang Yi, did you come to Xinjing to see someone you wanted to see but couldn't? Zhang Yi laughed and scolded, nonsense, I don't know anyone in Xinjing, who would I want to see? Deng Shintong smiled and looked at him, think carefully, is there anyone in Xinjing that you care about? As soon as these words left his mouth, a strange light suddenly flashed in Yang Xinxin's eyes. Zhang Yi said, care about? Then there's only one person. That name immediately popped into his mind. Apart from the powerful being with the ability Hell's Guillotine and the codename Ho-Tu, who else could Zhang Yi think about constantly? By now, Zhang Yi had become a powerful being with an ability index of 15,000. But whenever he thought of that afternoon, when the soldier was bound to the guillotine by the black and white impermanence's soul-stealing chains and sliced in half, Zhang Yi couldn't help but let out a long breath. The ability to kill enemies in seconds from thousands of kilometers away, that powerful force, even now, made Zhang Yi's hair stand on end. Zhang Yi's gaze suddenly became sharp, which was the instinct of an animal when encountering its natural enemy. Are you saying that Xinxin knows Ho-Tu? When everyone present heard this name, their expressions also became solemn. How could this be? Everyone was puzzled. Yang Xinxin had no relatives left in Xinjing that she cared about, so how could she be connected to Ho-Tu? Deng Shintong spread his hands. When I asked someone to investigate Miss Yang's network of connections, my friends suddenly told me that the information was classified. They found someone who was extremely confidential, and all the information about her was in Xinjing's most secret files. I was originally planning to keep this information secret. After all, Xinjing has complicated relationships, so it wouldn't be strange for someone to say they knew that important official. But a few days later, I didn't expect them to come looking for me. This was not surprising. When Deng Shintong went to investigate information about Ho-Tu, it would inevitably alert Xinjing's secret service, who would then launch a counter-investigation. Deng Shintong looked at Yang Xinxin. In the end, we discovered that Miss Yang and Ho-Tu were once close friends. Close friends? A hint of contempt appeared at the corner of Yang Xinxin's mouth, and her eyes were full of arrogance towards worldly people. Apart from Karen, I don't have any other close friends. She said coldly. Lu Karen smiled sweetly, her face full of happiness. Ahem, Miss Yang, you used to study at Zhongting Elementary School, right? Deng Shintong asked. Not many people knew the name Zhongting Elementary School. Even if you asked some locals in Xinjing, they would only know traditional prestigious schools such as the Experimental Elementary School. Zhongting Elementary School was a very low-key school, but its academic strength was definitely not low-key. This was because the school only cultivated one type of person, true geniuses. Even if your family was powerful and influential, if your child didn't have a high enough IQ, they couldn't get into this school. Of course, this was only in theory. In reality, even if the children of the powerful and influential were admitted to this school, which was only prepared for top geniuses, they would be completely lost and unable to keep up with the pace of teaching. Yang Xinxin, who was born with an IQ of 164, close to that of the great physicist Einstein, naturally also attended this academy. Obviously, people who come out of a place like this are very likely to become top figures in a certain field. Yang Xinxin's expression was extremely calm. Looking at her, it seemed as if she already knew who that person was. What does she want? She wants to see you. Deng Shintong said. I need to think about it. Yang Xinxin said. Deng Shintong nodded. The other party said they would respect your decision, but the person who came said that he was representing Xinjing, so please consider it carefully. Because Hotu seems to be looking forward to meeting you. Zhang Yi became even more curious. He looked at Yang Xinxin and couldn't help but wonder what kind of relationship she had with Hotu. And what kind of person was Hotu? But according to Yang Xinxin's information, Hotu shouldn't be very old, only around 20 years old. Yang Xinxin walked over, pulled Zhang Yi's sleeve, and led him behind her. She brought Zhang Yi into her room and closed the door behind her. Who is that person? Are you familiar with her? Zhang Yi asked curiously. Yang Xinxin nodded. If Hotu is who I think she is, then it makes perfect sense. She told Zhang Yi a secret about the Huashu Kingdom. Actually, the country has always had a human science research project, which is to develop the potential of the human body and discover geniuses with special abilities. Zhang Yi nodded, similar to the youth class back then. Yang Xinxin shook her head, not just geniuses in the ordinary sense. Intelligence is only one aspect. She raised her head, and beneath her thick, jet-black bangs were eyes as deep and beautiful as the sea. There are also special abilities. Zhang Yi was silent for a moment. Now they're called supernatural abilities, right? In the past, special abilities often appeared in movies, TV shows, and novels. Occasionally, there would be some science programs that interviewed people who claimed to have supernatural abilities, but those programs were basically just entertainment. It was impossible for people with truly powerful supernatural abilities to appear openly on television programs in the Huashu Kingdom. That was because science currently could not explain such things. However, the vast majority of people believe that there must be a group of people in this world who possessed abilities that ordinary people did not have. The population is large enough that even if the probability of mutation is only 1 in a billion, there will always be mutants. This is determined by genetic sequencing. So, Hotu is such a being. Zhang Yi sat on the bed, sighed deeply, and stared at the ceiling. A mutant who mutated before the end of the world and possesses supernatural powers. Right? Yang Xinxin nodded. That's right, she is a true mutant. Perhaps it can be said that she is the only true natural-born mutant. Because she has had extraordinary powers since birth, she was sent to Xinjing for research. When I met her, she had already demonstrated many incredible powers. As Yang Xinxin continued her story, the veil of Hotu was slowly lifted. Hotu, originally named Manhwa, is 19 years old and the same age as Yang Xinxin. She did not come from a privileged background. Her mother was just an ordinary middle school teacher, and her father was a third-rate scientist devoted to the study of human science. Before Manhwa was born, her father, Guan Yuan, was not well known. On the contrary, he was despised and ignored by the academic community because of his persistent research on the so-called Human Potential Development Project. When Manhwa was 6 years old, Guan Yuan suddenly announced to the public that his daughter had superpowers. At that time, the people of Huashu Kingdom had long since gone through the martial arts craze of the last century and looked down on so-called special abilities of the human body. Therefore, everyone treated Guan Yuan and his family as frauds. However, Guan Yuan did not give up. He spent all his family's money and brought his daughter to Xinjiang to vigorously promote his so-called theory of special abilities. Yang Xinxin said slowly, at that time in Xinjiang, although most of the mainstream media dismissed it and were determined to expose their scam, there was still a small group of people who firmly believed that supernatural abilities existed. Among them was an important figure who conducted tests on Guan Longyue. The final result was that Guan Longyue really did have extraordinary abilities. This ability is manifested here. She pointed to her head with her index finger. Her brain is developed differently from ordinary people, and it is said that she can sense frequencies that ordinary people cannot. So she can use telekinesis to perform some incredible feats. When Zhang Yi heard this, he took a deep breath. Is it related to her current supernatural abilities? Yang Xinxin nodded. That's right, it's a form of curse. She said lightly, at that time, she possessed the ability to curse others and inflict misfortune upon them. Zhang Yi's breathing became a little heavier. No wonder she can kill people from thousands of miles away. After learning about Ho Tua's ability, Zhang Yi's fear of her did not disappear, but it did ease slightly. Yang Xinxin continued, of course, someone like her would naturally be used by powerful people as a tool to deal with their enemies. Unfortunately, her curse ability was not lethal, and she couldn't even cause enough harm to seriously injure someone. When her abilities were first discovered, she was probably only capable of making people fall down while walking or preventing them from winning prizes in a lottery when they drank black tea. The big shots had high hopes for her, so they sent her to Zhongting Elementary School, which specializes in children with extraordinary abilities. That's where I met her. Zhang Yi nodded, I see. Although her abilities were weak at first, they grew stronger and stronger with training. And after the apocalypse, her abilities exploded. Right? Yang Xinxin tilted her head and looked at Zhang Yi with a mischievous smile. It wasn't that smooth, brother. She sat on the sofa and elegantly took a sip of the coffee in her hand. Although humans have always studied extraordinary abilities, science and technology were far from reaching such an advanced level. Despite long experiments, Guan Longyue's abilities did not improve much. After about 3 years, the powerful people completely lost hope in Guan Longyue and gave up supporting her research. She rolled her eyes, thought for a moment, and then said, this was an unacceptable blow to her parents, who had pinned all their hopes for the future on her. Her father fell into a deep depression and seemed to have lost his mind. And because they had bet everything they had on Guan Longyue, the family lost their source of income. Guan Yuan couldn't take care of his family, so he went even crazier in his search for a new financial backer. But after being abandoned by that big shot, no one was willing to give Guan Longyue a chance. Later, I heard that Guan Yuan fell from the high-speed train station in Xinjiang while drunk and died on the spot. Her mother also succumbed to mental breakdown and took her own life. Since then, I haven't heard anything about Guan Longyue. She probably ended up in an orphanage or was adopted by someone. Zhang Yi said indifferently, that's really tragic. He looked at Yang Xinxin and asked, was your relationship with her good back then? Yang Xinxin shook her head and smiled slightly sarcastically. Brother, if you had someone like that around you, would you stay close to her? Zhang Yi thought about it and couldn't help but nod. That's right, if there was someone around me with the ability to curse, then I think anyone would stay away from her. Yang Xinxin said, I wasn't close to her at the time, and we didn't have much interaction. Zhang Yi frowned and asked in confusion, if that's the case, then why did she want to see you? Yang Xinxin smiled slightly. Because at that time, I was a famous person at school. Compared to other abilities, intellectual superiority is very easy to detect. She pointed to her head, her smile not showing any arrogance, only confidence. As a genius with exceptional intelligence, she was indeed more easily accepted by people because this advantage was very easy to express. So in my opinion, her purpose in finding me was very simple, it was to take revenge. Revenge? Revenge for her past. Yang Xinxin said meaningfully. Zhang Yi suddenly understood. There was no grudge between Guan Longyue and Yang Xinxin. But if a person has been very lonely, then after achieving great success, they will definitely want to show those who once looked down on them the glory they have achieved. It didn't matter whether Yang Xinxin looked down on Guanlongyue or not. Guanlongyue needed to show off her current power and prove to the prodigy she used to look up to that she was no longer the same person. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Will there be any danger? Yang Xinxin smiled at Zhang Yi and said, with you here, there won't be any danger. Although the Xinjiang region is known as the most powerful region in the Huashu kingdom, it doesn't dare to break away from the other regions. Not to mention that they need your help right now. Guanlongyue has no reason to hurt me. The price would be too high. Zhang Yi sighed. After hearing you say that, I feel that this girl's mind is definitely different from that of ordinary people. If she's crazy, I wouldn't dare let you see her. Yang Xinxin said, but it's necessary to meet her. You've always been afraid of that person, haven't you? Yang Xinxin was right. Zhang Yi really cared about Guanlongyue. After arriving in Xinjiang, he thought he would be able to meet the legendary combat powerhouse of the Xinjiang region, but she never showed up. However, Zhang Yi still said to Yang Xinxin, your safety is the most important thing to me. If that woman poses a threat to you, I don't think it's necessary to go. Yang Xinxin looked at Zhang Yi with love in her eyes, a sweet smile on her lips. Brother, I'm so happy that you care about my safety. But I still want to go. Even if it's just to gather some information. Seeing Yang Xinxin's persistence, Zhang Yi said, all right, but when you go there, I'll accompany you. Okay. Yang Xinxin nodded. Zhang Yi immediately notified Deng Shintong that Yang Xinxin could go and meet Guanlongyue. Deng Shintong also immediately contacted the other party and agreed on a time for tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, when someone would come to pick up Yang Xinxin and Zhang Yi and take them to the Earth God's temple where Guanlongyue was. On the other side, after being warned by Zhang Yi, Fatty Su was also a little anxious at first. He was indecisive and didn't know how to handle his relationship with Li Yangyang. Although they hadn't known each other for long, they shared common interests. For example, games, figurines, body pillows, and a series of other two-dimensional products. There is a feeling called love at first sight, and he had this distinct feeling when he met Li Yangyang. Fatty Su knew very well that it wasn't fake. Being a fat otaku wasn't easy. Without years of experience, one wouldn't be able to understand the industry so well. Therefore, Li Yangyang's shared interests with him must be genuine. But how should he handle the relationship between them? All his worries vanished the moment he saw Li Yangyang outside the door. Li Yangyang stood with her hands behind her back, smiling at him. Chunlei, are you done? She took a game console from behind her back and waved it in her hand. You have to help me beat this game today. The gloom on Fatty Su's face disappeared in an instant, and his eyes lit up. Okay, with me here, it'll be a piece of cake. The two of them went into the room next door, and Li Yangyang sat down next to Fatty Su without any hesitation. Come on, I've been stuck on this level for a long time. Today, you have to show me how to get past it. She sat down next to Fatty Su, and a sweet scent wafted into his nose. Li Yangyang's movements were not at all reserved with Fatty Su, and even a single touch of her arm was enough to make Fatty Su's heart flutter and his face turn red. He quietly looked at Li Yangyang, who was concentrating on the game, and while he was inwardly grateful to have met such a good girl, he also had some self-doubt. Can a fat nerd like me really have such a nice girl like me? I'm fat, not handsome, and I don't have the strength and eloquence of a leader like Zhang Yi. Does she like me, or does she just see me as a normal gaming friend? Fatty Su couldn't help but think of what Zhang Yi had said to him, and he also had some doubts in his heart. Was there a reason why a girl as good as Li Yangyang would take the initiative to approach him? But all of this disappeared when Li Yangyang gently nudged him with her elbow and said coquettishly, Hey, what are you standing there for? Log in quickly. Yangyang must like me, hee. Fatty Su thought happily. The next morning, the people sent by Xinjiang arrived at the door of Zhang Yi's residence. A black luxury car was parked there, respectfully inviting Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin to get in. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin exchanged glances, smiled, and led her into the car. The roads in Xinjiang were very wide, easily accommodating 10 cars driving side by side. At this time of day, the roads were clean and deserted. Except for Xinjiang's dragon guardians and a small number of special personnel, there was no one else outside. The car drove north and arrived at the central area of the Ming imperial city. After passing through several palace gates, they finally arrived at Guanlongyue's residence, the Earth God's temple. This was the most heavily guarded place in the entire Xinjiang. As they approached, Zhang Yi alone spotted dozens of captain-level mutants. In addition, there were at least 100 mutants with a strength of 5,000 points or more guarding the area. Today was a very solemn day. Every few meters along the wide road stood a tall, imposing, and fierce mutant. Passing through the palace gates, they could see the majestic hall standing in the center of the palace walls from afar. It was a retro-style modern building, more than 20 meters high and covering an area of thousands of square meters. The bright yellow glazed tiles on the roof were not ordinary glazed tiles, but had the majesty and grandeur of an ancient imperial palace. The Earth God's temple was surrounded by a huge open space, with the courtyard alone covering dozens of acres. In such an environment, no one would have the chance to approach quietly. The palace was surrounded by a powerful network of firepower, and there was no shortage of top-notch mutants stationed there. Seeing this, Zhang Yi had some thoughts in his mind. When the car arrived here, it slowed down. At the end of the road, they saw Shang Daowen, the commander-in-chief of the Dragon Guardians, dressed in white, smiling and waiting for them. Zhang Yi squeezed Yang Xinxin's hand and said, "Just follow our instructions if anything happens," he said to Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin nodded and smiled. "Don't worry, brother. Everything will be fine." The car stopped, and guards immediately came over to open the doors and respectfully invited the two to get out. Zhang Yi took Yang Xinxin's hand and led her to Shang Daowen. Behind Shang Daowen was the huge and magnificent Earth God's temple. As they got closer, it was even more impressive, like a huge heavenly palace standing in the center of Xinjiang, forcing people to crane their necks to see it in its entirety. "Mr. Chaos, Miss Yang. Welcome, everyone. Hotu has been waiting for you for a long time." His gaze fell on Yang Xinxin, and he had a gentlemanly smile on his face. Then he glanced at Zhang Yi. "As for Mr. Chaos, please wait outside the hall for a moment." Zhang Yi glanced at Yang Xinxin, who gave him a reassuring look. Zhang Yi nodded, "Okay." Yang Xinxin walked forward at Shang Daowen's gesture. She looked up ahead, and the steps leading to the Earth God's temple were as high as if they were leading to the sky. She gently lifted the hem of her skirt with her fingers, then walked up step by step with light steps. Yang Xinxin climbed the high steps one by one and arrived at the front door of the Earth God's temple. Two tall female guards stood at the door and respectfully opened the tall doors of the main hall for her. "Miss Yang, please." Yang Xinxin's face was expressionless as she walked step by step into the hall. The huge palace was magnificent and spacious. The floor was made of the most precious gold bricks, which made a metallic sound when tapped. It was said that each gold brick was worth as much as an equal volume of gold. Yang Xinxin looked up and saw a cold and beautiful girl in a black dress smiling at her from a distance. "Yang Xinxin, long time no see." Yang Xinxin nodded, "Long time no see, Guanlongyue." Guanlongyue waved to Yang Xinxin. Next to her was a small tea table where she had already prepared black tea and snacks for Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin walked over without hesitation and sat down opposite her. The two elementary school classmates, who were not very familiar with each other but were not strangers either, sat together again after many years. After the end of the world, I looked for my old friends. But most of them were nowhere to be found, although some of them survived. But in my heart, the person I missed the most was still you. Guanlongyue poured Yang Xinxin a cup of steaming hot black tea. Yang Xinxin said lightly, "Oh? Is that so? But we didn't seem to have much interaction. I didn't know I was so important to you. Back then, you were so dazzling that it's impossible to forget you no matter how much time has passed." Guanlongyue said with a smile. Yang Xinxin's smile was a little deep. "That's all in the past. Compared to you, I'm just an ordinary person. Guanlongyue's mouth curved into a slight smile. It's just God's will, she said as she picked up a snack from the table, gently put it in her mouth, and took a small bite. I never would have thought that a day like this would come. Yang Xinxin said, yes, now you are the most powerful person in the Huashu kingdom. Guanlongyue smiled and shook her head, let's not talk about it. Although I have gained a lot now, I don't feel happy. As she spoke, she subconsciously rubbed her shoulders. The burden on my shoulders sometimes feels too heavy. Yang Xinxin smiled slightly and did not answer. Guanlongyue looked at her delicate and beautiful face, which was like a doll's. Xinxin, have you gotten the happiness you wanted? Yang Xinxin thought of Zhang Yi and her family, and a sincere smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. I'm very happy now. Guanlongyue opened her cherry lips, took a deep breath, then looked up at the empty and huge ceiling of the Earth God's temple. I wish I could be as carefree as you. Sometimes I want to do things but I can't. Yang Xinxin's eyelids drooped slightly. You already have a high position of power and the ability to control the lives of others. If you want more, isn't that too greedy? Guanlongyue smiled slightly and said, but sometimes, I think there's nothing wrong with being a little greedy. She looked at Yang Xinxin. From the moment Yang Xinxin stepped through the doors, she hadn't taken her eyes off her. This girl, who she had once looked up to, elegant and proud, like a crystal porcelain doll, was the person she had wanted to be for many years. The kind of person who was loved by everyone, a flawless genius. Guanlongyue had once fantasized about being like her. Xinxin, it's so good to see you like this. Yang Xinxin didn't feel anything about the way Guanlongyue addressed her. She and Guanlongyue weren't very familiar with each other, and this familiar way of addressing her only reflected Guanlongyue's inner thoughts. Guanlongyue believed that she was now powerful enough to get everything she wanted. The essence of this way of addressing her was a mindset that believed that others couldn't refuse her kindness, as if it were a gift. Did you ask me to come over just to reminisce about old times? Yang Xinxin asked indifferently. Guanlongyue blinked her eyes. Can I? She suddenly covered her mouth and smiled. Are you feeling particularly nervous because I wanted to see you? Actually, there's no need for that. I wanted to see you because I simply wanted to see you. She suddenly held half of her cheek with the back of her hand and said with a melancholic look, hey, when you are in a high position, you do have a lot of worries. No matter what you do, it will cause others to have endless speculation. That's exactly why I don't have any friends around me. I only have subordinates. Xinxin, can you understand this kind of pain? Yang Xinxin said lightly, I don't understand. Guanlongyue sighed lightly, that's true. Yang Xinxin fell silent again. Although she had anticipated Guanlongyue's purpose in seeking her out, she was not accustomed to flattering others. Seeing this, Guanlongyue slightly pursed his lips, suddenly leaned forward, and moved closer to Yang Xinxin's face. This action made Yang Xinxin frown slightly and lean back a little. Xinxin, I don't have any friends around me right now. Why don't you come keep me company? In this place, I can give you anything you want. You're a genius, you shouldn't waste your talent. Yang Xinxin stared at Guanlongyue and said politely, thank you for your kindness. But I'm very happy with everyone around me right now. So I haven't considered leaving them. Guanlongyue retorted, but I heard that you're just a subordinate of that guy named Zhang Yi in Tianhai City. He has many people around him, and you're just one of his followers. Isn't that a waste of your talent? She narrowed her eyes, her gaze carrying a hint of laziness, yet a fleeting sharpness. Others may not understand you, but I do. You have tremendous talent. If you want, you can become a very powerful person. Just like me. Yang Xinxin took a sip of black tea. She didn't show any emotion at Guanlongyue's words. Instead, she leaned back in her chair with a happy smile on her face. Guanlongyue, I'm not like you. As long as I can see my brother become stronger and stronger, I am very satisfied. Her smile grew even more intense. Thinking of the years she spent with Zhang Yi and watching him become stronger step by step, her expression became even more obsessed and sick. I'm not interested in becoming powerful. As for me, I like to cultivate people. Yang Xinxin's words made Guan Longyue's eyes narrow. You wouldn't happen to have fallen for that man named Zhang Yi, would you? Yes. Yang Xinxin replied lightly, without the slightest hesitation or shyness. Guan Longyue's black eyes rippled. What's so good about him? He's just a selfish man trying to survive in a crack. Yang Xinxin smiled and shook her head. You'll never understand this feeling. She thought of the scene when the two of them first met at Tianqing College, which was buried in heavy snow, and the smile on her face gradually deepened. When I saw Zhang Yi being cautious and stubbornly saying that he was selfish, but desperately trying to keep everyone alive, I felt a great joy in my heart. As she spoke, she suddenly placed her hands in front of her chest, a dreamy smile on her face. It's like a mother watching her child grow up. Ah, that feeling is so enchanting. It's this feeling that makes me deeply infatuated and want to stay by his side forever to see how far he can grow. Guan Longyue was stunned for a moment, her heart trembling. After a long time, she also smiled. Sure enough, we are the same kind of people. They were both girls who were crazy inside. Originally, Guan Longyue had many words she wanted to say to Yang Xinxin, hoping to keep her by her side. However, after listening to Yang Xinxin's words, she gave up the idea. Because she also wanted to keep this cute and beautiful porcelain doll by her side and raise her like a pet. So she understood very well how Yang Xinxin felt about Zhang Yi. Guan Longyue sat up straight and smiled at Yang Xinxin, looking at the eyes that only saw Zhang Yi. It was as if she was looking at another version of herself. The version she had once fantasized about. Hey, I really want you to stay with me. She covered her mouth and smiled, a hint of amusement flashing in her eyes. But now, I'm more interested in seeing how far you can raise that pet. It's not a pet, Yang Xinxin corrected, it's my beloved baby. If an outsider had overheard the conversation between these two Yandere girls, they would have been horrified. Two girls not even 20 years old, both of whom liked to treat humans as playthings. Their conversation did not mention the past in the slightest. Yang Xinxin didn't care about the past, and Guan Longyue didn't want to bring it up again. Zhang Yi stood outside the door, but it was clearly impossible to force Yang Xinxin to stay with him. Guan Longyue and Yang Xinxin sat facing each other, drinking tea. After finishing a cup of tea, Yang Xinxin got up to leave. Her test was over, and she couldn't very well ask Guan Longyue about her abilities, but she had already gotten what she wanted. Xinxin, wait. I have a gift for you. Guan Longyue took out a wooden box and handed it to Yang Xinxin. What is this? Yang Xinxin asked. You can open it and take a look, Guan Longyue said with a doting look on her face. I spent a long time making this especially for you. Yang Xinxin lowered her head and reached out to open the wooden box. Inside the box lay a doll carved from wood, looking lifelike. It looked just like Yang Xinxin. In terms of craftsmanship, this wood carving had reached the level of a work of art, with every strand of hair carved exquisitely. It was clear how much effort Guan Longyue had put into it. A red string was wrapped around the wood carving, which looked a little strange because it was not the usual ribbon used to tie gifts, but a red hemp rope. What is this? Guan Longyue smiled slightly and said, it's an amulet. If you encounter any danger one day, untie it. It will be very useful. Yang Xinxin thought for a moment, reached out and closed the lid, and said softly, thank you. Then she got up and said, I'll take my leave now. Guan Longyue covered her mouth and smiled, I look forward to seeing you again. Yang Xinxin left the Earth God's temple without pausing for a moment. Guan Longyue looked at her back, a strange blush appearing on her face, her eyes filled with intoxication. Ah, she's still the same as before, so noble and elegant. I really want her. Then I'll hold her tightly in my arms and play with her. She wrapped her arms around herself, looking like a lovesick girl. But then she remembered something and looked at the teacup on the table. She reached out with her delicate right hand, took the cup, and kissed it lightly with a slightly red face. Zhang Yi waited outside the door for Yang Xinxin to come out. Shang Daowen was standing nearby, smiling and chatting with Zhang Yi. Your Excellency Chaos, have you been satisfied with your stay in Xinjing these past few days? Zhang Yi said indifferently, not bad. Xinjing is indeed the capital. It's much more magnificent than Blizzard City in Jiangnan. It seems that you have developed quite well after obtaining the so-called Yuan ore. Shang Daowen smiled and said, if your Excellency Chaos is willing, you can also obtain it. All you have to do is join the next operation. I wonder what you think about it. Zhang Yi smiled and said, sure. Shang Daowen was taken aback for a moment. This seemingly casual answer appeared to be completely irrelevant, but it cleverly sidestepped the question. Shang Daowen did not pursue the matter further. After a while, Yang Xinxin came out of the Earth God's temple. Zhang Yi walked over, smiled, looked down at her and asked, did you have a nice chat with your old friend? Yang Xinxin nodded, it was fine. Then let's go back. Zhang Yi said to Shang Daowen. Please take your time. Shang Daowen immediately arranged for someone to send Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin back to their residence. After returning, Zhang Yi immediately asked Yang Xinxin about Ho Tu. Did you get any useful clues from chatting with her this time? Yang Xinxin nodded, at least now we know that she is actually very weak. Zhang Yi thought about it, smiled and nodded in agreement. Yes, she is strong, but she also has clear weaknesses. The unknown is the most terrifying, but once the veil of mystery is slowly lifted, the shock it brings to people quickly diminishes. The strict security of the Earth God's temple and the fact that Shang Daowen needed to be there in person meant one thing: Guanlong Yue's abilities were severely lacking. Therefore, she needed protection from others. My guess is that her ability is sorcery. As long as the conditions for casting a spell are met, it will cause extremely terrifying damage. However, she is lacking in close combat. Zhang Yi added, that's not necessarily true, because we can't be sure of the conditions required to cast curses. Perhaps she doesn't need a medium to cast curses at close range, but her close combat abilities are definitely not as strong as her long-range curses. That's why she needs someone to protect her. Zhang Yi's eyes slowly lit up, that makes sense. Why are there 3 epsilons in the Xinjing region, but Ho Tu and Xidagarba King are unwilling to leave Xinjing City to participate in the operation in the Qinling Mountains? Because Ho Tu is like the Reaper of Love. Although she is powerful, she also has flaws and cannot act freely. Xidagarba King needs to stay in Xinjing City to protect her and the entire city. Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin didn't go to see Ho Tu for nothing this time. At least they got some information about Ho Tu. A curse? The law of cause and effect. Zhang Yi rubbed his chin and his eyes narrowed. Since it's a tool of the law of cause and effect, there must be certain conditions that need to be met in order for it to work. Yang Xinxin nodded. I remember researching her supernatural abilities when I was at school. The tools she uses to cast spells are things like hair or fingernails. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed upon hearing this. If hair or fingernails were all that was needed to cast spells, then it would be too easy for Xinjing to get a hold of him. After all, people naturally shed about 100 hairs every day. Yang Xinxin shook her head. It can't be that simple. If that were the case, then the Xinjing region would be able to directly surpass the other 5 regions with her. After all, that would mean that the other epsilons would pose no threat to Xinjing. Zhang Yi hugged his arms and thought seriously, if a medium is needed, then it must be something physical. Hair, fingernails, things like that might work. If not, then flesh or blood. Suddenly, a sentence that Li Changgong had once said to him popped into Zhang Yi's mind. Don't reveal your name casually. Because a person's real name contains cause and effect. Is the name also one of the conditions? Zhang Yi subconsciously bit his fingernail and muttered. Yang Xinxin said softly, I think Xu Jing must know more accurate information. Not only him, but the commanders of other regions also know more than ordinary people. After all, Ho Tu is one of the means they use to control the top mutants in their respective regions. Zhang Yi rubbed his forehead. What a headache. Yang Xinxin smiled faintly. After all, Guanlongyue is the foundation of Xinjiang, so her abilities won't be easily known. Brother, you don't need to worry so much. At least based on the current situation, the conditions for her to use her abilities are quite harsh. Yang Xinxin thought of her own abilities and muttered, even the law of cause and effect has different effects on different people. It's like my angel of desire. The ability of the arrows is weakened against people with strong willpower or mutants with powerful mental abilities. Hearing this, Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xinxin and couldn't help but ask, Xinxin, tell me, if you were like Guanlongyue and became a powerful epsilon, what would your abilities be like? A playful look flashed across Yang Xinxin's jet-black eyes. Who knows? But now, my arrows have much more influence on people than they did before. The control time of Cupid's arrow is also getting longer and longer. Maybe one day I'll really reach that point, and I'll be able to turn others into my slaves. A bold idea popped into Zhang Yi's mind. If she could really achieve that, Yang Xinxin might be able to form a mutant army that would be absolutely loyal to her. If that were the case, Yang Xinxin's strength would definitely be no less than Guanlongyue's. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. It seems that I am very lucky to have such excellent partners around me. Among his partners at home, a few people had extraordinary abilities. For example, there was the martial arts master Liang Yu, and then there were Lu Karen and Yang Xinxin, who had shown their amazing potential in the later stages. If they grew up, they would become the most important supporting forces around Zhang Yi. Zhou Qir's doctor ability also completely solved their worries about injuries. Although the abilities of the others seemed slightly weaker, they also had their uses, so Zhang Yi didn't force everyone to have extremely powerful abilities. Therefore, he was deeply moved by his own luck. However, Yang Xinxin did not think so. She walked over to Zhang Yi and looked up at him with eyes filled with admiration and a hint of obsession. Brother, this is not your good luck. It is our good luck. It is because we met you that we have the opportunity to live to this day and show our abilities. I've always believed that the world isn't lacking in geniuses, but in opportunities. Just like Liu Bang, Xiao He, and Fan Kuai all came from Pei County, Zhu Yuanzhang, Suda, and Chang Yuchen all came from Fengyang County. She waved her right index finger like a history teacher, her eyes sparkling with mischief. It's not that all the outstanding talents in history gathered together, it's just that the people in that place happened to encounter a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and rose to prominence. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows and smiled. I just gave you the opportunity to show your talents. But then again, maybe this is just natural selection. If you weren't so talented, you wouldn't have waited for me to appear and would have died in the endless cold like everyone else. For Ho Tu, Zhang Yi didn't have a good way to deal with her for the time being. But fortunately, he was only thinking ahead and hadn't caused any conflict with the Xinjiang region. Therefore, in the short term, according to his style of doing things, he didn't have to worry about Ho Tu remembering him. But he kept this matter in mind and still asked Yang Xinxin to spend some time investigating it thoroughly. I'll have to go back and carefully read the ancient books to check out all kinds of witchcraft and magic spells from ancient times. Maybe we can find some clues. Zhang Yi hugged his arms. Those messy things from the past aren't the same as supernatural powers, right? Yang Xinxin blinked, but supernatural powers come from the heart. Guanlongyue's greatest wish in this life was for her curse to become truly powerful so that she could prevent the tragedy of her life. Then this long-cherished wish must be related to the legendary method. Researching it may yield unexpected results. Zhang Yi nodded, thinking that Yang Xinxin had a point. Then you investigate it thoroughly. He slowly narrowed his eyes. When I return to Blizzard City, I'll find someone to look into it. He wasn't going to look for Zhu Zheng. Because at the moment, he didn't know what exactly triggered Ho Tua's Hell's Guillotine. Asking Zhu Zheng would only show his fear. With Zhu Zheng's craftiness, he would definitely not let this opportunity to eavesdrop on their conversation slip by. So asking him would be pointless. Zhang Yi turned his attention to Deng Yuanbua. Perhaps this big shot with extensive connections in the Huashu Kingdom would know something. Earth God's Temple. After watching Yang Xinxin leave, Guanlongyue smiled excitedly, her sharp fangs slightly rubbing against her lower teeth. Qinling, where will you go now? To this world that has already fallen into chaos. She silently asked herself. At that moment, she suddenly heard Qinling's voice. Xiao Guan, how did it go? Is your friend willing to stay? No, she rejected me very cleanly and decisively. Manhua said. Oh? Is that so? That's a pity. But I'm curious, do you have a special purpose for insisting on seeing this old classmate? When Qinling said this, his tone was somewhat helpless. As the Xinjiang region's biggest secret weapon, any information about Manhua was top secret. In principle, except for him and a few trusted attendants, no one was allowed to approach the Earth God's temple where Manhua was located. However, this meeting was strongly requested by Manhua, so Qinling had no choice but to respect her decision. Manhua replied casually, just wait and see. My friend may become even more powerful than chaos in the future. Oh? This remark piqued Qinling's interest, and his tone became much more serious. More powerful than chaos? You mean she can rival you? Manhua smiled and said, I don't know. Abilities and such aren't important to her. All I know is that she's a genius and even more so, a crazy person. A person like that will become extremely dangerous no matter what she wants to do. At this point, she let out a light sigh. But right now, she doesn't seem to care about her own power, which is a pity. Time quickly passed, and 7 days later, the deadline that Qinling had given the representatives of the 5 regions to consider his proposal had expired. Therefore, the meeting was reconvened, and Qinling gathered everyone together and asked them with a smile for their final decision. As a result, the East Sea region was naturally unable to participate due to Black Tortoise's personal issues. The representative of the Southwest region, Pa Jigsan, smiled and shook his head, indicating that he had reported the matter to the chief monk of Sangha Temple, Yashilang Taideji, who was currently the most prestigious figure in the Southwest region, as well as to the Lord of the Corpse. However, after careful deliberation, they had concluded that the power of the Tantric faith was currently limited, and with Brahma watching closely from the west, they were unable to send anyone to participate in the operation. Qinling knew that the Southwest region was relatively complicated, having been under the rule of the religious authorities for many years, and after the end of the world, the power of the 4 Tusi of the region was unimaginable. So he didn't say much, just saying, I understand. Paji Tusi, thank you for your hard work. Pa Jigsan smiled and nodded in acknowledgement, then sat down silently. As for the other regions, everyone knew Li Changlong's position. He needed a successful operation to solidify his position in the Northwest region. Therefore, he was the first to express his willingness to cooperate. In the Northeast, Han Shanzhua also agreed to cooperate readily, but he put forward some relatively strict requirements regarding the specific details of the cooperation. Qinling said that these were not a problem. Finally, everyone's eyes fell on Zhang Yi. Among the representatives of the 5 major regions, Zhang Yi was the most special because his relationship with the Jiangnan regional headquarters was not one of subordination, but of cooperation. Therefore, no one could figure out his attitude. Most of the time, Zhang Yi prioritized his personal interests. Your Excellency Chaos, I wonder what you think? Qinling asked sincerely. Zhang Yi smiled faintly, I've thought about this question. If I am to participate in this operation, I have some concerns that I would like you to help me resolve first. Qinling asked curiously, Oh? What are your concerns? Feel free to speak. Zhang Yi said indifferently, first of all, intelligence. Except for you, no one else has any intelligence about what's underground in the Qinling Mountains. If you want me to participate, you must reveal all the intelligence you have about what's underground to me without reservation. Zhang Yi paused here and looked deeply at Qinling. I also want to see the complete footage of Zhenyuanzi fighting the 2 Epsilon-level Earth centipedes. Qinling lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then quickly replied, I can take care of that. As long as you participate, I'll arrange it for you right away. Zhang Yi nodded. Then let's talk about the second point. He looked at Li Changgong across the table and narrowed his eyes slightly. Go Chen and I have a grudge, so it's hard to guarantee that he won't attack me during the operation.